podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to No Question About That. I'm Ed, today with Wayne, and we're discussing Manchester United. Amadadona, the little man who saved United. For 80 minutes, it was absolute dross. And then along comes Amad to score his first senior hat-trick. Ruben Amorim, in the press conference before the game, was very, very clear. I mean, he was after the Arsenal game as well. He was very clear that he wanted to see the same level of performance in the game where we're expected to win as in games where we're not expected to win at all. So away at Liverpool and away at Arsenal, two very different performances, but two very sort of spirited ones with a lot of, to be reductive, heart and passion, but also tactical nous and energy, and they ran like mad dogs and all of that. And we got none of that last night at all. And it's pretty dispiriting in a way. You were there. What was your feeling, reaction to the game?
So I think the atmosphere it felt a bit weird for the first time. Not in any way like turning towards the manager or something, but I think there's like an early apathy against this kind of performance. Well, we'll say, I thought that the selection I thought was spot on in terms of that's the one that I would have picked. We've talked at length on this podcast about the options in that system at home and how the 5-man defence has not helped. Now, yesterday it did still drop to a 5 sometimes when Southampton weren't in possession of the ball. Were in possession of the ball. So that's an issue that's probably systemic and needs something addressing. I will say at some points it did move into a 4 as well with Mazraoui pushing higher or Amad pushing higher. Usually when I was looking at it, when he was dropping into the 4, it was Amad dropping further back. So maybe it's just the way that we moved across the pitch. Now, one of the bigger issues now, what I feel like I've identified or acknowledged from the way that we play against the smaller teams at home is that I think it's so obvious, and it goes back to, it's a generational issue really, that the teams who sit back, wait for United's ingenuity to try and get behind them. The qualities that we see from United are that they're a good counter-attacking side. And I don't think that's ever changed. Really, in the time that we've supported United, or even in this post-Ferguson era, I feel like all our big game performances have come with clinical counter-attacking. And that's certainly been true recently as well. Southampton were not good. They were better than they have been. They didn't have to play well. And I think that's the point that I've made many times, is that teams are not having to play well against us to get results against us. It's just have to be fairly organised. And that's what Southampton were. They didn't take any big chances. They had a couple of players who they would allow to sort of make voyages with the runs that they were making. Obviously, a notable one with Oro getting exposed on the right-hand side of the defence. Or targeted, maybe not exposed is a wrong word for that, because Amad was playing out there and they were thinking, right, there might be joy in that defensive area, and there was. So United's issue, and it's a big pressing one for Amorim, because I still don't think it was fixed. Maybe somewhat by the gambles towards the end, because he ended up putting Garnacho on the left wing back, which we've all speculated about as a potential solution for this, one of the issues. I don't think it changed the game. I just think Southampton lack of quality in the end, and they shit the bed a little bit, with the last 10 minutes. And Amad the target was obvious, just get Amad the ball and see what he did. And really, that's the tactic that won the game. So in terms of long-term investment in the ideas that you saw last night, I don't think there are any. The one thing that I have been saying for a long time is put Anthony on that side with Amad and see if it opens up the play. Anthony wasn't very good. So I will say, I know I'm being polite there. So I'm the first to say, look, Wayne Barton did not pass his way for a coaching license here. So I'm putting forward a theory.
What? No.
Yeah, I know, right? And that was the strongest theory I had up. But I will maintain that I do think that it had a product in us winning the match, because it gave Amad more license to attack. So even if Anthony's rubbish, the way that he operates and the dynamic that he uses in terms of playing the same way as Amad, albeit to a much lesser effect, opened up the pitch that enabled Amad to cause the damage that he did later on. So the investment side of it, what we see going forward, I don't think there's anything at all to take. But sometimes it's not about. Everyone was saying before this game, we want to see a big performance, and you want to see a big win. Sometimes those kind of wins are more important than winning 5 or 6-0.
Well, sure. So Ruben Amorim said beforehand he'd learn more from this game than Liverpool and Arsenal. I thought it was a bit of a throwaway line, really, because what lessons is he going to take? I mean, the internet will tell you it's about passion and heart and running, and certainly it's a physical game, so there's some of that. And I thought quite a lot of them looked very tired last night, especially Manuel Ugarte in midfield, which wasn't a surprise to me, given how intense the Arsenal game was. So there's that. So what lesson does he take? We need fewer games, less training. He said they've got to be fitter. Fine. Every manager has ever joined United ever
said that, yeah.
Hey, they're not fit enough. So I'm not sure I put much store by that. So what lessons? I'm a little bit unclear. It was very flat. The atmosphere felt flat. The team felt flat. You can put some of that down to tiredness. He'll have a think about who's right in what positions, I think. Certainly Rasmus Højlund is not having a good time, and it didn't stick with him when United tried to play it up to him.
Not at all, no.
Not at all. And some of that's the team. I just don't think it serves him well to use him as that out. And maybe with Victor Gyökeres at Sporting, he wasn't out. He's physical. What I think Rasmus is very good at is running into the channels, doesn't do it enough. And that's where the ball needs to go. It changed completely when Xerxes came on, and he can do that. He just can't score goals. He gets nowhere near the goal. So there's that. Sorry.
No. It's all right.
I just, I don't want to run down a rabbit hole on individual players. I felt the team was tired and the system didn't quite work for them. And so there's that bit of it. And to round out my thought, and I'll let you speak, I don't know Amorim will learn an awful lot from that, honestly. Southampton were better than I thought they would be. They did not sit just in the low block. I mean, they were adventurous when they broke. They broke with lots of players. And it's not like they had super high possession or anything like that, but they were ambitious when they broke.
Yeah.
And United were dead flat for most of this game. So, Wayne.
No. It's all good points there. And I would say, they didn't have to be really ambitious. They just had to sit back a bit, stand off that 10 yards and ask United to do something. And really, that's asking the players to do things that they can't do. With Garnacho generally play in front of them, or Højlund, you're quite right. The joy that he had, the mixed little elements of joy that he had were when the ball was sprung down the channels for him to run. But all the rest of it was extremely difficult for him. I sometimes wonder with this United side how cursed they are with the centre forward, that whoever starts the game is taking the sacrifice, that they know they're not going to play well, but the game will open up enough for whoever comes on to have a little bit more joy, because it feels like that's been the running pattern, that whoever starts plays poorly and whoever comes on has a better time of it, albeit still not very convincing. But you said, what would Amorim have learned from that? And I do think there are a couple of things. First of all, that he tried his best with the players that he's got there, but it's not going to work, right? So there isn't a solution within the squad that he's got. But he did also say that we're going to see more ups and downs like this, and when they're not going to play well, and they're going to be better good performances and poor performances. I think there's a level. The learning is the acceptance, right? It's saying, right, I already understand now that there are limits to what I can do with the players that I've got in the system. What I hope that he has learned, but we'll only find out in 3 or 4 games' time at Old Trafford when the full selection's available, is that you kind of have to take the gamble with the teams like Southampton. Like, maybe not Brighton will be a different case, because I think I'd still like to see that same 11 start against Brighton, or maybe Xerxes for Højlund. I don't think anyone would complain that he's earned his chance now. But apart from that, because I feel like Brighton are a team who have got their own ambition, so United kind of have that opportunity to play behind them, whereas Southampton were never going to be that. So there's that element of it. So he's got to have learned that himself now, because we've already seen enough of that system. The problem is, of course, the limitations that he's got on the wing backs and how willing he is to experiment in those areas. But he did at the end, but it wasn't really an
He did.
experiment. It was a gamble. It was a gamble because we needed to win a match. However, the one thing I've been saying for the last 2 months is that we've got to see he's not going to gamble on changing the system. He's got to gamble on what he does within it. And he did it, to be fair, he did it last night and he was rewarded for that, even if the fruits of that labour came through the most obvious route.
But that's okay. Yeah. That's
no,
okay.
of course it is. I just think for me, when you look at it like that, I think it sums up how bad Southampton were and how poor they are, and it always brings me back to the state of the league and everything like that. And it's not a strong league that we were able to do that at relative ease. We all like a last minute winner at Old Trafford, but it was still accomplished with a certain element of ease that makes you think it needs to be better. So I think I hope that's the thing that he's learned from.
Southampton have one win all season, minus 32. Well, now minus 34 goal difference. I mean, they shouldn't be difficult to beat. They're at 6 points. They're on to match Derby County's 07-08 total of 11 points, right? If they carry on this path. I mean, I think for 75 minutes, you look at that Southampton side and you go, okay, they should have enough to do better than they're doing. 6 points in the middle of January is a truly shocking result. So, yes, United should beat these teams with ease. And they took the chances eventually when they came. Well, Amad did, I should say. I guess the concern is with the overall system and shape. We know what he's trying to. I think we know what he's trying to achieve. He has said repeatedly, Amorim, has said repeatedly, coaching the attacking piece is much harder than the defensive piece. And generally speaking, I think defensively, United have been quite a lot better under him. I mean, we don't get those open spaces in midfield anymore. There is the double pivot in front of the back 3/5 in the defensive phase of things that has given United some more security. That shows in the data as well. And the attacking bit definitely hasn't come off yet. And I'm kind of interested whether it's systemic or individuals. I think you suggested there it's probably individuals or a little bit of both, but focusing on the individual. And I think it's an interesting thing because he's got basically 8 players for those 4 positions, or 3 positions. Sorry, it was 4 under Ten Hag, now 3. You could call it 7 because Rashford's been excluded, and let's presume he's never coming back. So you've got Højlund, Xerxes, Amad, Anthony, Bruno, Mount, Garnacho. Am I missing anyone? And there's question marks over all of them, really, except for Bruno and Amad. Okay. Apart from those two, what have the Romans ever done for us? Now, Amad's obviously having his breakout season. Bruno, I can't believe this when I say this, but there are people who don't like him. It's inexplicable. They also don't like oxygen or food, I think, because he is United's oxygen creatively. There's question marks over Anthony, whose productivity is 0, basically. Xerxes, who doesn't feel like a striker, but made the team better yesterday.
Yeah.
Højlund, who is a striker, but doesn't seem to use his tool set or hasn't developed it in the right way, or the system doesn't quite suit him. Spends all his time fighting with centre-backs. I feel like a broken record saying that, but he really does all the time. Mount is perennially injured. And Garnacho is inconsistent, despite, I think, having a high ceiling. He's still our top scorer, or was before last night. He's got 10 goals and assists this season, despite being in and out of the side and having been dropped and all that kind of stuff. So there's just question marks over a lot of players in those forward areas. United aren't going to do a bunch of deals this winter. I think that's really clear. There isn't the finances. And when it comes to the summer, you just cannot ship out 10 players and bring 10 players in. And if you do, Forest, Chelsea style, you better bank on a fairly low hit rate. And United can't afford that. So I do think there's a lot of problems. They should be more easily fixed through coaching and systems. But if we're saying these players can never do it in this system, then we've got a real problem. And maybe the league table isn't lying.
Yeah, but then you've also I agree with what you're saying. It does indicate a problem, but then you've got to be fair and say that the players have showed promise in other systems. We've delivered trophies, they've delivered big moments, and some of the players have. It's only a small sample size for now, but they have shown. For example, Garnacho, we've praised like his.
Sure, and I no, I'm not saying like in moments they haven't done well. They have. Garnacho, I think I personally think he has a very high ceiling. I think he's very inconsistent, but he's 20. Højlund, remember, he scored 7 goals in 7 games at one point last season. Get him into the right areas, he can score goals. Even Anthony has done some good things sometimes. I mean, of all those 8 I mentioned, he's the one I have zero hope for, honestly.
Yeah.
I almost said, I'm sure he's like, because I don't want to get all toxic. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. Depends. If you read the Brazilian newspaper report, he's not a lovely guy. But
no,
we've talked about that one. So, and I think there's lots, even like Josh Zirkzee doesn't look like a goal scorer. His all-round play when he came on last night, 53 minutes, was excellent. He looks like, whisper this, he looks like United's Firmino, doesn't he? You know, or maybe he's Wout Redux, a player who can't score goals but makes the team better in some way. So.
Yeah, look, I think there's an argument to be made about form and long-term potential, because I think the problem that we've got, and it is a bit of a problem really, that we've shown a lot of patience. I couldn't help thinking with Højlund and Zirkzee, the thought crossed my mind a couple of times over the last week when I watched them. Do you remember Forlan when he came in and he struggled so badly? The industry was there. There's a great line in the new Red News support fanzines, by the way. It's a great line. It talks about Ralph Milne in the 80s. And he says, watching United is like, I'm paraphrasing who said it. It might have been Barney's editorial. It might have been one of the columns in there. But it's a great phrase that sums up where United are. Is like, it is like watching United in the 80s. But there we had lesser talented players putting in greater effort, and it switched around that to now possibly more talented players putting in less effort. And I couldn't help thinking where you look at Forlan's sort of beleaguered form in his first sort of year in the United attack, where he struggled badly to score. It took him 9 months to get off on the score sheet, and even then it was like a penalty against Maccabi Haifa or something like that. And then he went on a little run and became a bit of a cult hero. And this is going to sound like I'm being very, very hypercritical, but I'm talking about the standards that are necessary to be reached, right? And how realistic we all need to be, and how far off we are from where we need to be. You wouldn't, at this moment, put any good money on Højlund or Zirkzee establishing themselves in a cult hero status in the same way that Forlan did, right? And I'm not being horrible. I just think that Forlan has his own legacy, and they've got to live up to that. So, and we're talking that, and the levels there, and we're talking Forlan's in the context of Premier League strikers for Manchester United. Forlan's mediocre. He wouldn't be in the top 10 when you talk about the best strikers. So that tells you the standard where United are. So where you talk about what that level of improvement is and what it looks like, and we all want to get behind players, and we all want to sort of see them do well and prove us wrong and all this sort of stuff. But we also have to be realistic. So my point is to what you were saying there, and I understand completely that the turnover can't happen the way that it's necessary for it to do to get United challenging quicker, is that's the bind that United are now in, and which is kind of makes me feel a little bit deflated and more hopeful of improvements in the system. I'm sorry, Ed. This is going to just be a little bit longer of a long-winded rant to get to to get to the point I want to make, really. So with those players and the form that you've got, is 6 months or whatever. Now, we all remember Martial and Pogba. It's like, how many transfer windows do you wait for them to come good? How long is that player marketable as an asset to you before he becomes worthless and you can't even give him away? And then you've got the other point which you made, which is the players and their suitability for the system, because then you start making wholesale changes. And I've said this point before, but you start making wholesale changes because of the suitability of the system. This very specific system that's used by one manager. It's never been used at Old Trafford before. It's not really used in England. So if you're buying players suitable for the system and it doesn't work with the manager, because let's be frank about this, at one point last night we were staring at 4 consecutive league defeats at Old Trafford, and that's a difficult conversation to start having about a football manager. I'm not saying that there would be pressure on him just then, but all the evidence that starts to support those cases starts to get formed.
Got it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's my. And I am normally optimistic about this sort of stuff, and I do want to see. I have no problem with all the changes because I'm willing as a fan to like give it all the benefit of the doubt and see that there are shoots there, and there were last night. I'm not saying there weren't. I think, like I said earlier, there's sometimes any kind of win you can see something in, and I think there was a lot to be gained from last night. I just feel if you were to be of a pessimistic disposition, I feel like you would have every reason to feel like you've still got 18 months to wait to see if all that comes out. Because, if it goes wrong and you do an eye turnover of players, like you said, he's impractical in the summer, but they do happen at United sometimes, just 7 in, 7 out. If that sort of stuff happens, even if 3 of them are on loan, and you've brought in a lot of players who are suitable for the system, but it's still the system that's the issue, then there are very big questions to be asked.
Well, I don't think the system. I think we tend to focus very much on this 3-4-3 system, but all it means is you need to rebalance the squad. I don't think apart from the wing backs, there are no specialist roles in that system that can't be deployed in something else, right? So if the concern is, go out and turn over the squads, do a high turnover if they can afford to do that, because there's a big cost to shipping players out when you brought them in for a lot of money and bringing others in. If they can afford to do that high turnover and they rebalance the squad to suit Amorim's system, it doesn't work out and move on to someone else. And then we're like looking at rebalancing the squad. The ones that you'd be concerned about really the wing back, because that's typically only found in this sort of 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 system. The rest of them can play in other roles in most other systems. Amorim's challenge, I guess, one of the challenges is he's got a lot of players in his squad that are quite comfortable in wide areas, not necessarily those sort of roaming number 10s that he's trying to deploy here. And there you're looking at Amad, who's done a good adaptation, but I don't think that was obvious that would happen with him at all.
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford, who's been binned off, and Alejandro Garnacho, who's in and out of the side, and we're wondering whether he'll reach the potential we think he may have or not, and whether he can even do it in this system, which doesn't necessarily suit wider inside forwards, right? So that's a bit of the concern. Now, if we really, really, really believe in Amorim and what he's going to do, and we think he's a brilliant young coach, and we're willing to give him the 2 years to evolve this squad and this team into something different, and you want to back him, and you're like, okay, yeah, well, we're not going to play with these wide forwards anymore. We're going to bring in a lot of intelligent number 10s to support a number 9. Then great. We can do that. Most of that will be okay in another system if it doesn't work out. But I do worry it does mean, like, for different reasons, that we may be looking at the exit for some high potential young players, and that would, like, that sets off a lot of red flags for me, or alarms. Sets off the alarm. I see a lot of red flags, to totally butcher my idioms there. Yeah. Well done, Ed. I mean, it's a lot like, I think I posted on Twitter yesterday, if United sold, and it's hypothetical, if United sold Garnacho for a fee that was lower than we paid for Højlund and Sancho and others, that would smack of some people at United thinking they're the smartest guys in the room, and because you don't generally sell high potential young players, especially in a situation that United are in, where we cannot buy established Champions League quality players. We just cannot, right? One, financially can't, and 2, they won't come.
And how much would we be paying for someone like Garnacho's on the market? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, just, I mean, he's desperately unlucky at the moment. He's got 10 goals and assists, as I said, but he should be a lot more. And Josh Zirkzee stole a goal off him by tapping it in on the line when he didn't need to. Anthony missed from a yard out last night. That would have been an assist. He didn't get the assist against Liverpool because it flicked off a defender. And so therefore, yeah.
Really? Didn't get the assist for that?
No.
Knobheads.
Yeah. Doesn't count. Doesn't count. So he should have even more to replicate that in half a season. To replicate, let's say he's going to get 25 goals on the stick this season. Let's just say you roll it forward. To replicate that in a 20-year-old player, you're going to pay astronomical amounts of money. And he's on a reasonable contract as well, despite signing a new one recently. It would be astronomical to replicate that. And so when we have conversations that are like, oh yeah, we should bin off 7 players this summer, the players that you should absolutely not bin off, even if you're frustrated with them, are high potential young players. Like, that is mad. That is not the way to evolve the squad. And so that's the thing that worries me when we talk about evolution of this squad, and even evolution to suit Amorim. I'm like, wow, that's risky. Like, because there's no guarantee that the players you bring in work out.
Yeah.
Like, just look at the last 10 years. Hardly any of them.
And the other thing is the unquantifiable element and the characteristic which comes through those young players, and that's the connection, the emotional connection and the synergy and energy with the club. So, I'll do it all day to talk about the numbers and the sort of clinical exposition on what that is with the players that you, like you say, you mentioned there with Garnacho in particular. It's an interesting one because you look at the numbers and what he does and everything, but then you look at what he does when he's on it's like Cobby. Cobby's a great example. We've toed and froed over his qualities and what he can and can't do and how good he is and everything like that. But then there's that intangible element of that, because he's a Manchester lad, everyone, the crowd will just get behind him, and there's a different kind of connection there. One, that's not Manchester United specific. One, every club loves its own. But two, there is a thing with United on their own, and you can't deny that. So
it's important.
And,
it's important.
And it's just something as well, like, sometimes I feel a bit guilty about this because you will wax lyrical about Bruno, and I don't feel like I've got the same love for him as you do. And it's not because I don't love him.
Oh, by the way, no, it's not. I think people always get this wrong. Like, I don't have. I mean, look, it's my football team. I live, breathe, eat, sleep, think about United all the time, to the detriment of other parts of my life. We all know this, right? It's not that I have some deep emotional, irrational connection to him. He'll create well over 200 chances a season.
No. So flip this the other way then. Maybe it's my irrational frustration with because I love risk-taking players, and sometimes I do get a little bit frustrated with him. But I think that
Would you get frustrated with Kevin De Bruyne?
I don't know. He's not in United's team. I'm only talking about... I mean,
but like pick any other creative player.
Europe. And sorry, that's not the point I'm making. The point, I know where you're going with that, and I fully 100% agree. And I'm not like De Bruyne takes chances too, and his numbers in terms of how they compare with Bruno's are just not the same. So I'm aware of that irrationality. I mean, the same way that I would love it when Giggs tried it, and like his completion rate for passes must have been somewhere between 60 and 70%.
And he got stick off the crowd during the worst parts of Ryan Giggs, where things weren't coming off for him and he was trying it all the time. He got stick off the crowd.
Anyway, let me just circle to the point, because it's a big fact you were right on this, because what I'm trying to say is I would never change him, even if I'm frustrated with him, because what he does do is he provides the ingenuity, and the point is I'm doing there is I'm connecting that to Garnacho, because he can still do things that no other player can do. So Garnacho's 2 years younger than Amad, and we could not see. You said earlier that some players can fit any system and it shouldn't be that much of an issue. But I think, no, Garnacho tailing off and Amad shooting the way that he has done into this exponential growth, I think that isn't a relation to that system. So my point is that it doesn't seem obvious now with Garnacho, but there could be a solution within 6 to 18 months where he absolutely explodes within that system, because there's something that happens within his skill set that goes, all right, this is what I can do and this is how I can do it. Because now you look
Amorim adapts as well.
Yeah,
right?
of course, yeah. If he
Yeah.
goes like, all right, we'll move the 10 to do this, and we'll get the wing back to play in this kind of role, like like inverted wing backs that we saw under Ten Hag and everything like that. But you see now, like Amad, the point is, and it's only again small sample size, but Amad, if he plays, let's say the last month or so, if that form is replicated through the year, he's a top 10 player in the world, and that's not even an exaggeration. He's that good, but it is down to Amad, but it is 50% down to the system as well, and we weren't seeing that before. I know you've said on Twitter about how he wasn't, how could Ten Hag overlook him, but the point is that sometimes when he played under Ten Hag, he did look lost. You can say that's down to the manager, but it all comes back to this thing about players and systems and managers, and this is why I'm with you. The point is, like I'm saying, I am agreeing with you about Garnacho, and what he stands to lose is something far greater than something that you stand to gain from that.
I know it's really, it is very trite of me to make that point. I mean, it's a Twitter thing, isn't it? Like, send Ten Hag to the gulag for ignoring him. Put him on the bench 19 times in a row last season, right? Where Anthony was doing absolutely nothing in the team. So the frustration is not that I could see that Amad would suddenly become this player who's got eight goals and 10 assists this season or something like that. I mean, really good numbers, right? It's not that I could obviously see that, because he did pretty well at Sunderland in the Championship. He did absolutely nothing at Rangers in the Scottish Premier League. It's not like I'm going, yeah, I knew all along he was going to become this player. No one did, even if you liked him at youth level. So it's more about like poking fun at Ten Hag for doing that and not giving the guy a chance, honestly.
Yeah.
Or as someone said, I said they should send him into the Hague, or Ten Hag, we should call him now, for crimes against football. So, yes, but that comes back to my point about like high potential players. Like, I do think there is something in Højlund. We're not seeing the best of him right now. There's something in Garnacho. We're not necessarily seeing we're seeing great things in moments from him, but is it, the all-round game for 90 minutes? No, not really this season. Are we seeing that from Josh Zirkzee? No, and I probably have more doubts about the tool set there, the all-round tool set, being a striker, right? So young players, it is a very, very, very rare thing, extraordinarily rare, that they look like a complete product when they're in their early 20s or teens. Extraordinarily rare.
Ask the question to you then, as a supporter. I know we're way off Southampton here, but hopefully people are following the thread of the conversation with this. But how long do you give that development then? How long do you invest in that before you say, we either want to be challenging for the title or it's time for you to go elsewhere? I'm asking you to put a number on it. How many months would you say is like?
I think that's a totally fair question. I don't know exactly the answer. It was reported I'm going to deflect by giving a different answer. The Athletic, I think it was Laurie Whitwell, reported, not that long ago, that Ineos felt, or the new executive team felt, that they could make a decision on a player after 2 years, and that was a buy-sell decision after 2 years, and they weren't going to take longer than that. And it comes back to your point about don't get to the point where they're toxic assets and you can't sell them. Because we know the cost, and it's a double cost, because it's the cost that you pay to bring them in, and it's the cost that you have to pay in terms of a lost fee and possibly even subsidizing wages to get them out as well. And I think that's totally fair. Maybe it is 2 years. Actually, for forwards, it takes longer, right? And there's loads and loads of examples of this. When I say extraordinarily rare for teams to be fully formed, it really is. Like, we can point to Lamine Yamal at Barcelona, or as a forward, or even Kubasi at the back, and go, it's extraordinary that there are teams and they're performing at this level, right? Just doesn't happen in world football very often. But there's also great examples of players who are 20 and doing absolutely nothing. Mo Salah doing absolutely nothing, age 20. Harry Kane on loan at Leicester, scoring no goals, age 20, right? And they become brilliant players, but it took them a long time to do that.
And Salah, again, system player. I don't mean that, I know he's brilliant, but he's a brilliant player in that system. There's no guarantee that, like you said, his track record doesn't suggest that he goes somewhere else and does that. So, it's...
Well, and the numbers he puts up now, you could not have said he would definitely do that. I mean, he was pinned off by Chelsea. He went to Switzerland. He had a loan at Roma, did pretty well. but not this well. Has gone to Liverpool and has been extraordinary, and that's the last time I'm ever going to praise a Liverpool player, hopefully. But my point is, like with high potentials, you have to find a way. I do think it's very difficult because we're in this bind where it's very hard for United to get established Champions League quality players without overpaying for them, and we cannot do that anymore. Simply don't have the money because we are overpaid for those players before to tempt them to come to us, and it's come around to bite us. And the obvious one's Casemiro, and I don't want to shit on him for the sake of shitting on him, but he's a £25 million a year PSR cost to United for very little benefit at the moment. And it's that kind of risk that United have taken that is not paid off. So if you're going to go from 12th as we are now to back into the Champions League, that bridge is probably going to come through younger players who are inconsistent. You'd ideally want to drop them into an established high-quality side. You know, when United were brilliant, 2008, 2009, we had Rooney, Tevez, Ronaldo, and Berbatov came off the bench. You know, it's like right now we've got Højlund, Josh Zirkzee, like as options for those striking positions. Like the paucity there is like absolutely desperate, and it's also deeply unfair on them because they don't have a lot of like high performance players around them either. You know?
And it's also like it's the ceiling of the club, right? So it's a high drop and a consequence of so many different mismanagement things that have nothing to do with the players who are wearing the shirts. But you are talking like this chasm, 15 years really, to go from arguably the most talent we've ever had in the front line to, well, I say arguably, best Low Charlton, York Sheringham, Colin Solskjaer might have something to disagree. But yeah.
But yes, the chasm between that and what we have now is desperate. When it's a nice spam box on YouTube, because there were a few offensive words in there, he was expressing his frustration with Bruno. And it's like, why are you always going on about this guy? And he wouldn't get into peak Barcelona, would he? Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. That's not the fucking point. We are so far off that. So unbelievably far off that. So the argument is, well, he wouldn't get into the peak Barcelona side, so bin this player off now. I mean, my God, we're so short of high-performance players in this squad. That will help younger players develop, right? And unfortunately, that is the pathway we have to find right now.
The question isn't that. The question is, does he get into a Manchester United side that wins the league within 5 years? And I think he does, because he's one of the, like you said, the numbers are there. The talent is there. The leadership.
It might not be in 5 years' time, mind you. So,
but I mean, like within that 5 year, is he worth that investment? Is he a player that you've been off the form? No, like it's
sure. And I'm also trying to make another point. You need a few high-performing, established, experienced players to drop these younger players into to make that leap from where we are today to next year qualifying for the Champions League, because it absolutely has to happen. Just absolutely have to happen. Otherwise, you're getting into a really difficult position where you actually have to sell off the higher earners and just only go for either mediocre players or younger players. You're in a spiral that trapped Arsenal and Liverpool for 20 years, each of them. Deary me. We've talked for 42 minutes here, and we haven't even really praised Amad much. He got a fucking hat trick last night. We'd be moaning most of the time. So, because I think I posted on Twitter, it was an unmitigated disaster until Amad mitigated it, and he most
I like that.
Did mitigate that disaster. The first one was a little bit lucky in that he cuts inside, shoots the left foot, bounces back to him, and he finishes well with the right. I mean, he's done some brilliant stuff in there, so like I don't want to over egg the luck. And then 2 other fine goals to follow it as well.
Well, one. The from Eriksen pass was good. I mean, the last one.
Oh my God, Eriksen. I know he hasn't got the legs anymore. But fuck me, there's so few players in world football that can pull off that pass.
From first glance, I thought, and this is going to sound really terrible, because I love Eriksen, so I don't mean this, Christian, if you're listening. I wish it was Collier. I thought it was Collier who did it. And I thought, because of obviously something to get invested in. Yeah, he did. It was a fantastic.
I forgot to praise him the other night. When he came on against Arsenal, I thought he was brilliant.
Oh, he was, yeah.
He did such a good job. Yeah, it's not been Trevor Binion, under 21's coach, said if we'd had 2.5 years with him, we could have made him really, really top player. 2.5 uninterrupted years. So he's had a few injuries, and I think that's set him back a little bit. There's a lot of, he's very physically, he looks brilliant, doesn't he? He's very quick. He's very, very mobile. He runs all the time. His effort levels, you could not doubt at all. My doubts with him were on the technical side, not the defensive technical side, because I think he does a lot of good things there, but the passing side. In that interview, Travis, which was done earlier this season, said he's been improving that too. And
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. On the ball, he's looked a little sharper as well. He's an option, right? He's come on twice now ahead of Casemiro. So,
yeah,
he's an option.
Yeah, definitely deserves a lot of praise. The one thing I don't like about United managers, when they do it, is when they throw a young player under the bus. We saw it a couple of times with Mourinho. To be fair, not many of them have done it. Mourinho did it a couple of times. Throwing the under the bus can take its various guises. The Mourinho one I never liked was when he put Tomney at centre back.
Oh, that's a cry for help against West Ham. Yeah,
and then turning his back to the crowd facing the crowd. Sorry, when Rashford had a miss in a game. So there were two things there. And I wasn't ever a big fan of Ten Hag putting Collier on when we were getting absolutely.
It's Liverpool.
That I didn't like that. I felt it was very unfair, very difficult for him. So to have things like that can destroy players. And he came back and he was fantastic against Arsenal. He really was, and he was good again last night. And that's why I kind of really wanted that to be assist for him. However, the Eriksen assist was Scholes versus Milan-esque. The clip over the top, quite not as perfect and glossy as that, but everyone who can remember that will know what I'm talking about. Finish was magnificent, little stab there. And then when you've watched a team time waste, as is their wont, I will not disagree with their right to do the things that frustrate me watching as a football fan. But it's beautiful to see a defender then take a heavy touch and Amad come in and nick and then kick it. I don't know what it is. I have like this fascination with nets, right? The shape of the nets. Every time an FA Cup final goes around, I always tweet around about the old Wembley nets, with the green poles. I like, we should bring them back up. The old Stretford end nets. I used to like them when they hung back. And I liked the aesthetics of him kicking it, hitting the pole and it rolling around the entire net like it was like a big crazy finale. And
it's a whole thread we could have on nets. I mean, my favourite are Mexico 86, where they're ridiculous. They would go back like 10 yards.
USA 94 ones that were like a cloud. They were very good.
The old Dell, where the net was about 3 inches deep.
Yeah, Sellers Park as well, like that.
You couldn't even tell. You can't tell whether it was a goal sometimes. It bounced out off the advertising holdings behind the goal.
Well,
I mean, that's hit the post.
You can probably tell where Letizier's conspiracy theories came from because he probably disallowed a few. Porto, I remember we played Deportivo when Beckham scored from about 35 yards.
Right.
And the net was so far back, flew in there. The old ones, Real Madrid, used to be like that as well. Yeah, I love nets is a great conversation to have.
Absolutely nerdy.
Yeah, you've got to. They don't now, they're all square. It's all square, the sort of same old sort of uniform nonsense. And they add a bit of character to it, your favourite nets. I think
the quality of the netting really matters as well, because you want that nice kind of smack, don't you, when the ball hits the net? You don't want a too soft net. There are some. I'm trying to think of a good example here, and it's not coming to me. But like where it doesn't really make the right kind of sound when it hits the back of the net. You want that smack.
Yeah. There was like a satisfaction. Was it? I think when Sheffield Wednesday had the classic nets, like the not too long back. But I think I remember
they used to have stripe nets at Wednesday.
Yeah. Memories. Newcastle's black and white ones.
I got robbed of a goal once. I was not a very good footballer, like when I was younger. I mostly played in goal, and then in our school team, another kid came along who's better in goal than me, so I ended up playing at right back.
That is painful, being ousted as a goalkeeper in the school team.
I know. And I hit one where it went in and hit the... What do you call that?
Stanchion.
Yeah. It hit the inside of that and bounced straight back out. And it was clearly a goal, and it got ruled out. And they was like, you hit the post.
By the way,
that does.
My nephew sometimes watches the podcast that I'm on, and he's just got a goalkeeper for his school team. So if you're watching this, Freddie, and it sounds like I'm making fun of people who get picked for goalkeepers for a school team, I don't. I think it's a brilliant achievement. Just like Ed, you can grow up to be a big podcaster and talk to idiots like
sure
you.
thing. Yeah.
There you go. Nets
Deary
are
me.
great. So when Amad scored that, and he went flying all around the net. It was great to see. It was like, do you know, he'd not been. I did worry in the first half because I do think that playing at home, he has to play that right wing back, and I do feel somewhat vindicated, like I was saying, the Anthony thing. I don't think it worked in the way that I wanted it to work, because obviously you want us to win 6 or 7-0 or whatever, or it looks more flowing than what it did, rather than the emergency it turned out to be. But I do think that it had an impact on the way that the game opened up, and I think that really you can't make. Definitely, Amorim cannot afford to do this. He needs to sort of fix all the leaky holes everywhere else. But as much as you don't want to build around one player, especially if you're Manchester United, you also have to maximise when he's in that run of form and help him as much as you can. And he's the ceiling that he's got in this system is so high that I think that playing Anthony there just suits until Shea Lacey's ready to emerge, because he's the natural player who plays in that area. Or if you can train another player to play like that, or obviously in the away games where, let's say, let anything above mid-table, where we can play that flat back five in midfield, as long as they're going to play with that same kind of application, then fair enough. But I don't know, like, it didn't seem obvious until like maybe the last 25 minutes where Amad really sort of clicked in, and I do think that coincided with Anthony coming on. And sometimes when you've got it at the moment, like Amad has, you've just got that sense of timing and occasion. Yeah, it was brilliant.
All right, before we go, thoughts on Brighton, Old Trafford on Sunday. It's a 2:00 kickoff. Brighton, kind of mixed bag of a season. Which I guess is what one would expect, wouldn't one of a club of Brighton's size and business model, where they sell off their best players and bring in younger players from the Paraguayan third division or whatever it is. They have this uncanny knack of doing that, but some inconsistent results under Hertzela. I don't think they've changed. They haven't radically changed it. I mean, there are some things he does different than De Zerbi.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the kind of box crashing midfielders or the third man run or the late run that De Zerbi has. They are extremely possession oriented, Brighton.
Yeah.
Almost doubled down on the baiting the press work out of the back.
Yeah.
But very different stylistically from, say, Southampton.
Yeah.
Very, very different. A game where they will, as you said, they will take some opportunities to move forward. They will try and retain possession. They will leave some space behind. Does that give an opportunity for United to hit them on this counter? They certainly will counter us, mind you.
Yeah.
Right. They've had a few problems up front scoring. I mean, João Pedro's been scoring. Evan Ferguson's had a lot of injury problems. Danny Welbeck's injured at the moment. So that's caused some challenges. But yeah, thoughts on Brighton?
Yeah, I think I would take the gamble and put Mazraoui in the back. Dalot will be back, right, because it's only a one-game ban, so I'd put him on the left and have Amad on the right again. You're right. I mean, I've been long-time listeners and viewers to this podcast will know that Brighton have been pretty much my second team. Like, I've championed them a lot, said how much I enjoyed watching them play. The new manager has been strange. There has been a deviation from the way they play. It's no longer as dynamic. I don't feel like it's the same kind of... That changes. It's normal with the evolution of a football team that things will change. They're not as dynamic as they used to be. I'm not saying they're not good to watch. They are good to watch. I felt like when you watched Brighton under the latter days of Potter, but mostly through De Zerbi, there was like a bombastic element to like everything they did. The only predictable thing about it was that everything was unpredictable. Like, every player would take a chance. And I love that. I love that in a so-called smaller club, especially the one that had built as somewhat conservatively as them, because they've been so sensible in the way that they've constructed everything off the pitch. But the team seemed to take such gambles on it. It was such a nice contrast, and you can't do anything but will that to continue to do well. And I know that it's not exactly people saying Paul Brighton, because in terms of expenditure, like you said, you know what I mean, they're very resource heavy in the way that they invested a network to bring all those players to the club. So it's been effective and it's worked, and it's been a joy to watch. It has changed a little bit this season. When we went down there and they were still figuring it out, we were very unlucky. I mean, I'm not going to say Ten Hag was an unlucky manager this season, but there were moments, and that was one game where there was the goal on the line, which was disallowed for offside, which was symbolic of everything that was happening to us. And then we go and have that catastrophic end, as we tended to do under Ten Hag. So it was too early to sort of know how we you know, it wasn't necessarily a defeat to the system. It was just United imploding as we tended to do it around that time. This time on, we do have a stronger sample size of what they do now, and it is a little bit less dynamic than it has been. I don't think that helps us a lot, because it's just a good footballing outfit. And I remember going back to the Mourinho days when they were first promoted, they played better than us at Old Trafford. There's only been a couple of games where they've not been the better team at Old Trafford, and I struggle to pick them out. I'd have to look through the results and say, no, that's maybe one. I even remember, if you remember, we played a game, we ended up probably winning 2-0, which is as convincing as it's been against Brighton at Old Trafford anyway, when Ronaldo scored, and they played really well. And we needed Ronaldo to, you know, it was a good goal what he scored. It was kind of like we needed that because they were getting on top. So the point is that they always play well, and they always play without fear. And I think they embraced that occasion of coming to Old Trafford. And the players have outlasted the manager there. There's enough players there who are used to winning at Old Trafford. So where I've said, I have gone on record a couple of times recently and said that this is the big test for me. I know that the players have been saying it anyway, but I was saying it like in sort of forecast away from before Liverpool and Arsenal. I'm saying like I expected the players to raise the games for that. Well, for Arsenal, not so much Liverpool. I was fearful of the 10-0 that everyone else was predicting. But I was looking to the Brighton game and thinking, if you want to see progress in 2 or 3 months, then I think it's fair to say that we will be a better outfit against Brighton. Now, I don't necessarily believe that now, because of what I've seen. I don't expect us to play better than Brighton at the weekend. I don't expect us to play. I expect them to be more open. I expect them to play better football than us. But I hope that what Amorim has learned in the meantime will be enough to make, because Brighton are a big game and it's a big test for United. It is a really big test for a lot of these players who, you know, I'm not a big fan of like when they say, you know, oh, they've got to go out and prove something. You know, that kind of thing. But I think these players have been embarrassed enough by Brighton outplaying us at Old Trafford. There's enough of those players who've experienced that, and your pride should be hurt, right? You want to go out and put on a good performance, especially for fans who've not seen us play well in a few months at Old Trafford. So since the early days of Ruben this story, I don't know what I'm expecting, because everything's such in the melting pot at the moment. But I do feel like there's an opportunity there, because Brighton aren't as dynamic as they used to be. But I would not take them for granted at all.
Well, no, I mean, and they do have players that'll hurt us, assuming Amadchester is fit. I mean, he's got 5 league goals this season. Mitoma will be extremely dynamic on the left. Again, assuming he's fit, will exploit space if United do go with a more attacking right wing back. Who's it? Simon Adingra, who's tended to come off the right? Good, very good player as well. So they've definitely got players. They perhaps are not as good in midfield as they once were, I think. So they played, who was the kid they played against Arsenal the other week? O'Reilly. Julian Enciso hasn't quite developed as they expected. Obviously, Buonanotte, the other young Argentinian they chipped out on loan to Leicester. They sold off, 2 of their best central midfielders. Of course, very hard to keep replicating that model. Once upon a time, it was Southampton that was developing all the brilliant young players, and they were selling them off, mostly to Liverpool. Before that, Swansea were the quote-unquote best-run club in England, or Wales, or the Premier League. And so there's definitely a risk you have to really believe in your model to keep selling players all the time. They seem to really believe. I mean, the owner at Brighton has made a lot of his money from gambling, has a data company.
Yeah.
They use that to very good effect for themselves, but also sell data to other clubs, interestingly. But it's a very interesting model, which they've sustained very well, but you keep selling your best players off. Obviously, that is going to have an impact, So, and it has had some, but for a club that had no ground or in the fourth tier 10 years ago, basically, it is, I was going to say, it's not a romantic rise. It's a remarkable rise. It's not romantic because it's taken £500 million of the owner's money to do it. So, hey, the romance of hundreds of millions of pounds.
Nah, it's as romantic as you get in modern day football, I guess.
Apparently so, yeah. Alrighty, before we go, a shout out to Frank. Don't often do shout outs, but he is in his 80s in Canada. He is the godfather of our old editor's wife and apparently a big fan of the show. So thank you very much for listening.
Hi, Frank.
Happy to keep your company for an hour in which we rambled on about Manchester United's many failings and the unlikely path towards being good again. So let's hope that starts with a victory over Brighton on Sunday. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, everyone. Bye now.
There's nothing like being in the stands cheering on your favorite team. Game Time is your hack to unlocking amazing tickets in just a few taps. Plus, their Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets at the best price. Fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. Get the best deals on sports tickets. Download the Game Time app and create an account to start searching for tickets to upcoming games and events. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time.